Okay, hey guys, Kate Bora here, flying solo this morning. Wanted to jump on and do a quick live about around a topic we've been talking a little bit around over the last couple of weeks, and that's mindfulness. We have been talking about a bunch of different stuff, so executive presence. We've also been talking about authenticity, and so today it feels like appropriate for us to start to bring together and talk about mindfulness and how that is a gateway and a path for us to connect in with some of our truths. So if we think about authenticity, one of the key messages in the book is sometimes what stops us speaking up is that we're not clear about what our truth is, or we might doubt it, and so self-talk gets in the way, and we don't voice what's going on for us because we're not clear, and because we're not clear, or because maybe there's a story going on in our head, we think that perhaps someone might think that's a stupid comment or it's a stupid question. We don't speak up, and so if we think about mindfulness, and mindfulness really is just about being present, and which is why when we think about executive presence, half of executive presence is being present in the moment. And so if we think about mindfulness as a tool and as a gateway for us to access our truth, if we think about it as a pathway to be able to really connect in with people when we're in a room, to show up and connect and be with someone, to be able to use it as a skill and a tool to be able to pay attention to what's going on. So we think about effective communication. If we think about presence and being in a room with some stakeholders, our ability to pay attention to what's being said and what's not being said, to be able to observe the body language, all of that requires presence. And our pathway to presence, our pathway to our truth very much comes through mindfulness. So we wanted to have a bit of a chat today. Fiona and I had a quick chat about this yesterday, about what we might talk about. Unfortunately, she couldn't join me this morning, but we wanted to talk about this whole topic of mindfulness. Very popular 10 years ago, or started to become popular within the corporate sphere. I know sort of in my last year in the corporate world, or the last 2 years, I joined a Buddhist meditation course every week. And that was where I started to really learn meditation. I had a bunch of audio books, got a bunch of books. I must confess, I found it very hard at the beginning. So one of the challenges I had was that I would come in to my working day would be very busy. It would run at a pace. And I would come in to that work day, and particularly if I started off the day meditating, I would kind of enter into that day in a slower pace. And so I found quite a lot of friction between this concept of starting the day slow and then kind of getting into the office and maybe not being able to kind of get into my groove and get into my flow. So it was interesting. That's when I shifted and started going on a Wednesday night to this particular meditation class. And I guess to start to learn, and what I really found, and look, for me, meditation particularly, if we talk about mindfulness as being present, many different pathways to practice mindfulness, yoga, meditation. Meditation is obviously one of the most popular ones, but I think what's important is we don't overcomplicate it, and we actually just really think about it's the opportunity to be present in this moment, to not think about what's come before, to not think about what's going to come after, but to be in the here and now, right now, and that we focus on that. Lots of different gateways to it. As I said, Wednesday night I was doing this Buddhist meditation class. I found just it to be a really useful tool of learnings and teachings around that. To this day, the last 10 years, I think my relationship with meditation has been interesting. I've been around times of having meditation rooms in my house that never get used, and all those sorts of things. Today I mix it up a little bit. I really believe in and use mindfulness and meditation as a tool for me, particularly to access my truth, to connect in and access all the amazing things that are going on in our brain, that we don't necessarily have conscious connection to. And so for those of you who know me well, I'm quite obsessed with productivity and how do I work smarter, not harder. So for me, meditation is a pathway to access that and to be able to hook into my creative genius on a regular basis. But, you know, being able just to know what's the gamut of things that can bring me into the present, that can bring me into a mindful state. And, you know, all sorts of things. It doesn't need to be sitting down and necessarily meditating. Of course, mindfulness meditation has gained popularity in the last 10 years. We've seen Google bring in and that's very popular. In fact, Fiona's been to that. That came to Sydney 2 years ago, I think, and Fee's been along to that. Of course, yoga, Pilates, all of those sorts of programs are bringing in elements of mindfulness and presence in those. Fee's a very big fan of yoga. Myself, I've got to say, I've never really been able to. I like the idea. In fact, I'm thinking of going today at lunchtime to find a practice or try it out again. But for me, it's never necessarily been something I've done. I like the idea of yoga, but it's never necessarily been a practice. But I think it's having a cup of tea. You know, it's making a cup of tea and being present. It's going for a walk around the block. One of the things I've started to do recently is, you know, when I go for a morning walk, not to have music on, not to be listening to you know, webinars or podcasts. Even when I get in the car, there's times when I just choose to drive without a radio on. And so I think, you know, it's that piece of just being present and being with my thoughts and being in the here and now, not worrying about what's been in the past, not worrying about what's coming in the future. And I think the more that we can start to do that and practice it in the minor moments, in the walk to the train station, in sitting on the train, in the making or drinking a cup of tea or a coffee, in washing up, you know, lots of different ways that we can start to just practice being in the present, being in the here and now. And on that note, I'm going to take a sip of my cup of tea. But the more that we can start to do this and the more that we can use it as a tool, to be able to connect in with our core confidence, to be able to bring us out of a fight or flight state. If we're in a room and where our self-talk is going crazy about, you know, whether I should or shouldn't ask the question, or whether, you know, it is something that I should contribute to the discussion, the more that we start to use mindfulness and presence as a tool to access our brain, to be able to connect in with other people in the room, to find our truth. The more that we can do that, the more that we will stay connected in with our core confidence. So I would love to hear from you. You know, if you've got any good mindfulness hacks, lots of apps out there now. Headspace is one, Calm is another. I'm a big fan of all of that. I like guided meditations. My partner's just starting to learn meditation. He said to me, you know, it's just, you know, my brain is racing all the time. And, you know, I said to him, the goal ultimately is for that not to be the case. And it takes practice, like going to the gym, like sport, training your muscle and your brain to be able to, you know, not necessarily connect in and be hijacked by those thoughts. It takes time. It takes training. But the key piece is to not necessarily be judging yourself in the moment, to be able to be present, to notice that and again, still happens with me, notice that your attention has jumped onto a thought and you've kind of got to be distracted, and then bringing your attention back into the here and now. It's very much about noticing and then bringing your attention back to the here and now. Like I said, for me, guided meditations work really well. One of my teachers, Penny Short, has a whole bunch on her website that I use regularly. So that's nice because it's like I'm seeing her, even though I'm not in the room with her. But really, it's about finding what works for you and then leveraging that as a resource. You know, so many times people talk to us about how do we take control back of the self-talk, of the dialogue, of the self-criticism. How do I capture back when I go into fight or flight? And presence, mindfulness, and breath can be some of the quickest ways for us to connect back in. So that's it for me. Really connected in with some of the different topics. Presence, be focused and present is chapter, I think it's chapter 6 in the book. Goodness me, I should know those off the top of my head. But worthwhile checking that out. If you've got a hack, if you've got a tip you want to share, pop it in the comments below. We'd love it. I'm always looking for mindfulness strategies and insights from you guys. And of course, guys, if you know someone who would benefit from hearing a little bit more about this, we are by no means mindfulness or meditation experts, just people who have been practicing both for a long time and always keen to learn more from about it and from you guys as well. So that's it for me. Take care, guys, and we'll see you next week.